I wanted you to fill this in. It just kind of goes over the vocabulary. The word trigonometry, it comes from two Greek terms, trigon meaning triangle and metron meaning measure. So trigonometry has to do with triangle measurement. These ratios and these calculations that we're going to be learning today only work for right triangles. So keep that in mind that these only work for a right triangle. Yeah, let's get into it. So here says relationship between sides and angles of the triangle. So there is a new symbol right here that you probably haven't seen before. It's called theta. So this is called theta. And this is like your designated angle, like that you're solving for. Designated angle. This is the one you're solving for. So it's kind of like x. It's just like a symbol that represents a number. In this case, it represents the angle measure. And so when we have theta, or they tell us which angle we want to focus on, what we're going to do is just make an arc here to identify it. Okay, and then based on that designated angle, we're going to label these sides. So opposite this angle is called the opposite side. Then the longest side of the triangle that is also opposite the 90-degree angle, because remember these are right triangles, opposite the 90-degree angle is called your hypotenuse. And then this side that's left over is called adjacent. And adjacent, the word means right next to. So this is right next to theta. Notice there's two sides that are technically adjacent to theta, but the longest one is the hypotenuse, and then the one that's not the hypotenuse is, we call it adjacent. So far, so good. Everybody good? Let me know if you want me to repeat anything in this lesson, just like I'm taking it slow on purpose so everybody, and don't sleep through this one, right? Because if you sleep through this one the next 2 weeks, you're screwed. Okay. Kyle, you too. Stay awake. You got your packet? Okay. Next, complete the following based off the corresponding triangles below. So now we're going to practice it. We're going to do one together, and then I'll have you do this one or try it on your own. So for this, we have our theta, so that's our designated angle, and we're just going to label the sides. So opposite that angle is your opposite side. The longest side here that's also opposite the 90-degree angle is called your hypotenuse. And then the one left over is the adjacent side. Okay, so which side is a hypotenuse? It would be AC, opposite BC, and then adjacent would be AB. Okay, so on this one, you try it on your own. Do the same steps that I did. Identify your angle, and then label opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. Kate, try this with us. Kate, can you do this? Try it on your own. Okay, so looks like some of you are done. What you should have done is identify this angle, that's your theta, your designated angle. Then from that angle, this would be your opposite side. Then this is the hypotenuse, the longest side. And also, sometimes it can be hard to tell which one's the longest, but your hypotenuse always opposite your 90-degree angle. And then this would be the adjacent side. And from here on out, we aren't going to be writing this all out. We're going to be using abbreviations. So we'll use O for opposite, A for adjacent, and H for hypotenuse. And then which side is the hypotenuse? It would be PN, opposite, MN, and adjacent is PM. Do you want another example of this, or are we good? We're good? Okay. Okay, next side. Okay. Trigonometry. Okay, bringing in some new stuff again. Okay, so there's 3 new vocabulary words you haven't seen before. Sine, tangent, and cosine. There are abbreviations for these words, and the abbreviations are on the calculator: sin, cos, tan. So when I say these, I'll be saying sine, cosine, tangent, which means that right there. So the abbreviation for sine is sin. For tangent, the abbreviation is tan. And then for cosine, it's cos. Okay, so today we're just focusing on setup. We're not focusing on putting anything into the calculator. So sine is opposite. And I'll give you a way to remember this in a second, but for right now, just write it down. It's opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, so those ratios are going to be used to set up our problems, and you have to have those ratios memorized. Luckily, somebody came up with an acronym to help us through this, and it's the same acronym that we've used forever. So in this, you guys got those ratios written down? In this box, here's the acronym that we can use to remember all of this, and it's called SOHCAHTOA. 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 So this has all of that information that we just wrote up there. So in this, it means sine, and I'm going to abbreviate now, sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. So these letters are in the order of the ratio, O over H, opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So even after teaching this for many years and doing it since high school, really, I still write this down when I'm doing the problems because I don't even have those ratios memorized. I just use the acronym. Okay, so how do we set this up using this? So over here, we have an example here. It has our theta. So first thing we're going to do, just like we did on the other page, is like our designated angle right here. Then from that angle, we have our opposite side, hypotenuse, and adjacent. And then over here, we're just going to set up the ratio. Sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse, so we'll do 3 over 5. We're just plugging the numbers in. Then cosine of theta adjacent over hypotenuse, so we do 4 over 5. And then tangent opposite over adjacent, 3 over 4. And that's the gist of what we're doing today. Yep. Okay, so here we'll do one together and then I'll have you try one on your own over here. So for this one, write each ratio as a fraction in simplest form. Okay, so we have our theta, first thing, a designated angle. Then from that, we have opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. Then sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so 5 over 10. We'll simplify this in a second, but for now, just write down the ratio. Then adjacent over hypotenuse, 8 over 10. And O over A, 5 over 8. So this says write each ratio as a fraction in simplest form. So we do have to simplify this. So 5 and 10 can both be divided by 5, so you get 1/2. 8 and 10 can both be divided by 2 for this. And then 5/8 is already simplified. Okay, try this one on your own and see if you can get it. So right now, I should be seeing you try this one. So if you finished it, here's what you should have gotten. If you didn't get that, I'm going to walk through the steps so you can see where you messed up so that way you can fix it for the next time. So here's the ratios. Did anybody get these? Good job, Justin. Okay. So first step would be identify your angle. Then label your sides, opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. And then from there, you can set up your ratios opposite over hypotenuse, cosine, 5 over 13, and tangent, O over 8, 12 over 5. And we're done. For those, they didn't need to be simplified, so you're just done. Okay, so for the next set of problems is really what you would see on like testing or something like that. I mentioned tomorrow we're going to take it a step further and use a calculator to like solve for angle measure and stuff. But sometimes on testing they just want the ratio. So the problem will look like this. There's also a couple on Alex this week that just want the ratio, so I'd recommend practicing those today while it's like fresh in your head. It says use triangle ABC to express each ratio as a fraction and remember to simplify. So here, And notice how it doesn't have theta there, but instead it's saying sine of A, and it's referring to angle A, or cosine of C, it's referring to angle C. So 3 of them all refer to angle A. So with a pencil, I'm going to label this. So for angle A, that's our designated angle. And then we have opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. And the ratios, notice how it's not labeled for you, and it won't be labeled on any kind of test or anything. So what you have to do is write down SOHCAHTOA. And make sure you get the spelling down and everything, so that way when you're on testing, you can just write it down. And now you have all the ratios right here for you to reference. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse, 16 over 20. I'll simplify them in a second. Right now, just get the ratios down. Then cosine, AH, and that order is the order of the ratio, so A over H. 12 over 20. And then tan of A, opposite over adjacent, 16 over 12. Okay, and then we do need to simplify them, so just divide by common factor. We have 4/5, 3/5, okay. The next 3 is talking about angle C, and that's going to change your opposite and adjacent sides. So I'm going to erase this and now designate angle C. If you're working in pen, I'm sorry. But angle C right here. Then based on angle C, opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. Okay, so tan, opposite over adjacent, 12 over 16. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, 16 over 20. We're done. Okay, so what we're going to do now, there actually isn't a Schoology assignment on this, but we're going to practice on this worksheet. I'll start it with you, and then gradually you'll do it on your own, and then turn it in when you're done. So I'm going to pass this out. Pause my recording here. Where's the mouse?